Good evening, everyone. My name is Bob Fontana. I'm the head boys basketball coach at Ankeny Centennial High School in Ankeny, Iowa. And I would like to thank the Iowa Basketball Coaches Association and Don Logan for asking me to speak to you tonight. I will be speaking on building a program and maintaining a culture. A little bit about my background. I've been at Ankeny Centennial. This is the 8th year since the opening of the high school. Previously, before that, I was the head basketball coach at Cedar Rapids Kennedy High School for 16 years. And then early in my coaching career, I was head coach at CWL Corwith for 2 years, head sophomore basketball coach at West Des Moines Valley for a few years, and then head coach at Carlisle High School for 5 years before going to Cedar Rapids Kennedy. Look forward to speaking to you tonight, and we will be having a PowerPoint slides and also including a few of my players here at Centennial as we speak to you about what it takes to build a program and maintain the culture of your program. What I'd like to start off with first tonight is just a document that has PowerPoint slides with it that you can view. And it's just something I put together actually when I first came to Cedar Rapids Kennedy, which has now been 24 years ago. But it's just a document, as I said, that we put together, or that I put together. And I've always said we want to have an extra heartbeat, and we always want to be prepared to be successful. Our goal, and my goal, was to develop and achieve and maintain a first-class championship basketball program. And to me, championships, they can be won on the court with victories and trophies, but also we want to celebrate successes off the floor as well. Whether it be a young man academically, whether it be something we do with community service, or anything of that nature that has our young men understanding that they're going to be a man a lot longer than they're going to be a basketball player. So we have 4 phases that we always look at, and we call it 4 phases of our project. We want outstanding leadership. That starts with our coaching staff. We want to build it with quality people. And I'll get into that here in a little bit. And we want to develop a strong feeder program the best we can. And we want our players to understand what we mean by the Jaguar Way. The first phase, as I had mentioned, I said about outstanding leadership. And these are qualities which I feel I possess, as well as some of our staff, which makes us the people to lead and develop our basketball program at Centennial High School. The first thing, we think relationships are huge. Not only coach-coach relationships, coach-player relationships, coach-administrator relationships, parent relationships, all of it blends together, and we want to make sure that we have great relationships to the best of our ability. We also want to make sure we're running a program that has a very disciplined approach, and we think conflicts are going to arise. You have to deal with those in a very mature manner. And then, any basketball is a long season, and then you throw in the off season there, and there's always going to be, conflicts, people that question what you're doing, maybe who's playing, who's not playing, and we feel like we handle those in a very organized fashion, and always try to make sure that people understand where we're coming from. That goes back to the relationships approach. And then we obviously, we are student athletes, our players are student athletes, that we look at and value the importance of academics and promote the academic achievement. It's always a highlight at our banquet, recognizing those who have gotten academic letters or academic awards for their high grade point averages. Also, too, we want to be known to have a tremendous work ethic. I feel myself and our staff has a passion for the game of basketball, and we have some guys on our staff. They are constantly, trying to better themselves and better our program, and so we call that a thirst for knowledge and continuous development. So we always want to have the ability to develop players, not only as basketball players on the court, but as young men off the court. I've always said, told my players, you're going to be a man a lot longer. You're going to be an athlete. So we want to teach you those life skills along the way. And bottom line is too, is myself and our coaches understand it's not about us, it's about them, okay? We're here to be their coach, their mentor. We want to help them in as many ways as we can possibly help them becoming not only a better basketball player, but a better person and a productive citizen in our society. So, moving on to phase 2 of our project is we want to build it with quality people, all right? And, when we look at quality coaches, the traits that I would like our coaches to possess is that they've got to have a great work ethic, okay? It's just not a title to be a coach, okay? It's an action. It's coaching, all right? It's teaching. As I tell my players, as well as my coaches, this is a classroom. We're just not sitting in a room and desks and chairs, but our gym is a classroom. The weight room is a classroom, all right? We expect our coaches to be loyal to our program, be loyal to our school, and be loyal to our community. And we want them to strive to learn and improve as coaches and individuals. I like it when I have some guys on my staff that aspire to be head coaches because I know they're going to work at it and they're going to give us everything they possibly have. And when you get guys like that on your staff, they are worth their weight in gold because yes, they want to improve themselves, but also they are improving your program. When it comes to our players, we want quality young men, okay? We want them to understand that academics and citizenship come first, and we want them to represent Centennial High School in a very first-class manner, and we want to teach them a great work ethic. We always say that we will not be outworked. And in our league, there are some teams that play very, very hard, so you got to match that intensity. And I know there's coaches out there that we coach against that they have great work ethic too. And then we want our kids to respect the game, appreciate the game. We want to teach them to play the right way, okay? And the right way is not about X's and O's. It's about respecting the game. It's about, treating your teammates the right way, being a team player first. And we think that's very, very important. We also say that we want to create a basketball family. No one is bigger than the family. And the success of our program is not evaluated just on wins. It requires the effort of everyone involved in our program, from coaches to players to managers to parents. There's a lot of different successes that can be achieved in a program, and so we try to find as many of those successes as we possibly can. We know that there's personal sacrifices that have to be made, and we feel that everyone has to have a role and take ownership of their role for us to experience success. One of the things that we did when we first opened up and I was first hired, I did the same thing at Cedar Rapids Kennedy. The only thing at Kennedy is I waited till about the third year I was there. At Centennial, I did it right away, and that was developing a strong feeder program. Try to be involved in the middle school program as much as possible, but we have a split 8th grade season where the junior high basketball is only half the year, and then our freshmen are actually at our junior high. So what I did is I contacted the middle school AD to get input about the program and the expectations, and then I also would meet with the middle school coaches, the 8th grade coaches, and then the freshman coaches more often to discuss philosophy, expectations, and involvement in our high school program. As far as what we do with our summer camps, I meet with the AD and the head coaches of other sports, and then we create a camp schedule. Our varsity sophomores and freshmen, they go 3 days a week in the summer. We go on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. And then we have 2 weeks of our little Jaguar or junior Jaguar camp. We have a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade camp, and then we have a separate 6th, 7th, and 8th grade camp. And we have 2 weeks for each of those camps. So a young man can come 1 week or he can come both weeks. And then we think it's real important to get that information out to our feeder schools and get it out to our parents. And if any young man ever has any financial difficulties, we make sure that we can find ways to take care of that registration, because we never want that to hold anybody back from participating in our camps. So another thing I did is helping develop the Ankeny Centennial Basketball Club along with our girls coach, Scott DeYoung. And our program structure is like this. We have tryouts in late August, and we have usually 2 tryouts. They're 1.5 hours per grade. The teams are aligned based on their tryouts, and we look at their skill level. And do we divide the teams by their skill level and ability, or do we divide the teams equally? And a lot of times that's dependent on the grades. We have this coming year, we have 21 teams with 190 young men. 2nd and 3rd grade teams are divided equally. 4th grade, we have a top team, and then the other 2 teams are divided equally. And then when we get to 5th grade, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, the teams, we have like an A team, a B team, and if there's a 3rd team, then it's like a C team. And we also, in the fall, we have 10 skill sessions, and our varsity and sophomore staffs run those skill sessions. And then as far as the program structure, we have a board, an Ankeny Centennial Basketball Club board, which involves a president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. We have grade coordinators. And then myself and our girls coach, Scott DeYoung, are also on that board. And then the next, or I should say the phase 4 of our project is understanding the Jaguar Way. Okay, we want our kids to understand that putting on a uniform is not a right, it's a privilege. And as you can see on that slide, what the expectations are. They're supposed to do their best in the classroom and on the court. We want them to represent our school and our program in a first-class manner. Loyalty is a big point of emphasis for us, and so is our work ethic. And we expect, and we tell them up front, there's going to be personal sacrifices, and you have to accept that. That's part of being on a team and being in a program. And you have to understand also that there's going to be adversity throughout a season, and that adversity is part of life, and how you handle it. A lot of times I tell kids adversity will bring advance, and so you need to handle that appropriately. And we also want our kids to understand our program. Yes, it's a basketball program, but it's not going to be just about basketball. We're going to do some community service. We look at a couple community service projects every year that we participate in. The last few years, we have fed the homeless. We have also taken meals, prepared the meals, and took them down at Thanksgiving time to Sisters of Mercy and then the Door of Faith Mission. So we want our kids to understand the importance of community service. At this time, I would like to introduce to you 4 of our seniors on our basketball team this season. Number 1, Jerron Cruz is our point guard. Number 4, Colin McAleer is a 2-guard, 3-man for us. Brock Jensen, number 25, is a 3-4 for us. and Mike Jones, number 30, is a foreman for us. And these young men have been in the program now for a few years. And so what I would like them to speak to is, when it comes to Centennial basketball, what does the Jaguar Way mean to them? So we'll start with you first, John.
I'd say it means just like leaving back a good legacy for the younger guys, or a good culture for the young guys to follow.
Colin, what does Jaguar Way mean to you when you think of Centennial basketball?
Being close as a team and just being one big family.
Brock, what does it mean to you?
Always doing the best things you can on and off the court, because no matter what you're doing, it'll always follow back to you wearing a Centennial uniform.
And Mike?
It's being the best version of ourselves on and off the court, in school and out of school, because it's a representation of all of us.
I appreciate you guys, and these guys are not only good basketball players, they're also quality young men. They all have high grade point averages, and as I've always told them, they're gonna be a man a lot longer, they're gonna be an athlete, and I think these guys are good role models for our young kids, and they exhibit those qualities. Also too, we have staff meetings. Our athletic director will meet with our entire staff, and we'll do that here coming up, mid-October to third week of October approximately. And then after the athletic director has met with our entire staff, then I will set up staff meetings. After that, I will meet with our freshman staff one or two more times. I'll meet with our sophomore staff one more time, and then our varsity staff, my assistants and myself, we will meet 3 to 4 times after the athletic director's had his meeting with us. And what we do in those varsity staff meetings, we'll break it down, like we'll talk about any new drills or skills that any of my assistants have found out about or gained knowledge about, and how we want to implement those into our program. We will also talk about personnel in that first meeting, and who we see potentially being on the floor for us and in what role they will be in. The second meeting that we have, it'll solely revolve around the offensive X's and O's, the man offense or offenses that we want to continue to tweak, any man specials that we're going to look at running, and as well as man out of bounds plays. And then we will focus on zone offense, zone specials, and zone out of bounds plays. And then our third meeting that I'd have with the varsity staff, we'd focus on our defensive schemes and who we see being our top defenders, and we'll even talk about other players in the league and how we want to go about defending them and their teammates. And then we'll talk about any special situations as well in that third meeting. And then basically our fourth varsity meeting is just getting everything ready and just double checking everything, making sure all the equipment's ready to go, and going over the first 3 or 4 practice plans. I put together a weekly schedule, and then obviously I plan my daily practices based off that weekly schedule. So those are the kind of things that we do in our staff meetings. At this time, what I'd like to do, I mentioned as part of our project, the importance of hiring quality people. And what I'd like to address is our expectations for the coaches that we hire on our staff. And you'll see it in the PowerPoint, we have a job description for our freshman coaches. We have a job description for our sophomore coaches, and then also we have a job description for our varsity assistants, and the responsibilities that go with that. And then what happens is they get those responsibilities and expectations given to them, and I sit down with the coaches one-on-one after they've been hired and spell out what our expectations are for the program and what exactly expectations are for the level that they're coaching. And then each coach is given 2 notebooks. One of them, we call it the Program Foundations and Drills notebook. It just has in it, the legal papers that we need, any first aid or information our trainer's given us. It also has in there any information that our athletic director has given to us, equipment checklist, and then also we have in there what we call our 5 core fundamental areas drill booklets. And those are in one notebook. And then in the other coach's notebook would be our X's and O's, which would be our defensive schemes that we run and our defensive terminology. And then also the offensive end of the game. We would have our man offenses, our base offenses, our man specials, man out of bounds plays, and then our zone offenses, zone specials, and zone out of bounds plays. And then any type of press offenses we may run and late game plays is what the contents are of that second notebook. And coming back to the coach's responsibility and description, as you can see here on the PowerPoint, it's very important that our assistants are organized, and in the preseason, I want them to obviously have a team meeting. I want them to get a practice calendar for the entire season to not only the players but also their parents, and then we have a parent meeting when we meet with the parents as a whole, and then we will break out into separate team meetings with the parents and spell out the expectations that we have for them as well. And I will allude to that later in my presentation. We also want our coaches to, help supervise open gyms when they're available. And then we have a shoe and gear fitting where we have a rep come in and bring a size run of shoes, and the young man and the parents, if they so wish, they can purchase shoes at a 35% discount. We also, they can get fitted for their practice gear and travel warm-ups that night at the fitting. And then my expectations are that all of the coaches on our staff do the online rules meeting. And when it comes to during the season, we want, our base system implemented at both the freshman and sophomore levels. And I asked the coaches to provide me with a summary of each week and weekly notes of what their practices look like and what they accomplished and what they still need to work on. And then during the season as well, we have sometimes we have team meals for our sophomore team. I expect our coaches to attend those. With the varsity assistants, they also attend the team meals when we have them for the varsity. And the postseason, I expect our freshman and sophomore coaches obviously to check in equipment and give me an inventory so I can then share that with our athletic director. And then when it comes time for the end of the season banquet, just getting the information to not only me but our athletic director and our Jaguar basketball committee that we have formed. And then in the off season, I want my coaches to work our camps, freshman camp, sophomore camp, and the varsity camp. And then based on their availability, I would like them to also help out with any weekend tournaments or summer leagues we might be in. So, and then the last thing is I highly encourage my assistant coaches that they attend a coach's clinic at least every other year. And a lot of times I will go to college practices, and some of my assistants will go with me to those college practices, and I think those are just as good, if not better, at times than attending a clinic. And then also too, as you can see on the PowerPoint, I've given you an example of our scouting schedule from last season. What I ask my varsity assistants to do is we break the scouting schedule up, and then I have 3 varsity assistants that are assigned games, and so each guy is assigned approximately 7 to 8 games during the season. the teams we played twice, try to keep that same coach with that team if at all possible. And what I asked them to do is to watch 2 games on that team, proceeding when we're going to get ready to play them and prepare for them. And then myself, I'll watch 3 games on that opponent. And I may not watch the same games that my assistants do, and I may watch the same game or games. And then when they've given me their notes, and then I compare them with my notes, then we put together a scouting report, and we have an assistant on our varsity staff that will be assigned to use our Fast Scout program to put together our scouting report, and then we get that to the players. We get that to the coaches 2 to 3 days before we play a team, and then we'll get it to the players the day before. And what we'll do is we'll start up at the film room, and we'll watch about, we'll spend about 10, 12 minutes going over the scouting report, and then another 5 minutes going over our game plan. And then we'll take maybe 6 to 10 minutes, look at some clips of the opponent, and then we'll go down and hit the floor and, cover that stuff on the floor, as well as looking at it on the screen. So, and then that same assistant that's in charge of typing up the scouting reports, he also works off Fast Draw, our Fast Draw program that we have. And we try to keep a library on each opponent from one year to the next. One of the things that we have in our coach's notebook that's the program foundations and drills notebook is what I call our 5 fundamental areas. And those 5 fundamental areas are ball handling, shooting, transition, defense, and rebounding. And so we have a booklet of drills for each of those areas. And not only do our freshman, sophomore, and varsity coaches have those as part of our package, but we also give those to our 8th grade coaches, and then our Ankeny Centennial Basketball Club, which is a club that we started the first year we were opened up, 2nd through 8th grade, or in that club. I give a set of drill booklets to each one of the grade coordinators in the basketball club, and then some of the coaches for the teams, they will actually purchase some of those as well. If any of you are interested, we sell all 5 booklets for $30. Excuse me. And at the end of the presentation, I can give you more information about that. But we think it's very important that we have a core set of fundamental areas and drills that we emphasize in our program, not only from the drill itself, but also learning the terminology that we use in our system. And some of the drills are very basic, and some of them are a little bit more advanced. And so you can tailor those based on what grade levels you are working with. Just an example, in the offensive drill booklet, in one of the offensive drill booklets, the shooting one, we all do box drills. We do the box drills from the varsity all the way down to the 2nd graders. And big emphasis is on proper footwork, and then we'll worry about the shooting aspect of it. But we really want to focus on that footwork. And so that's just an example of something that's in one of the drill booklets, and what we call the 5 fundamental areas that we want to emphasize in our program. We feel it's very important that our coaches are continuing to emphasize all of our fundamental areas, and we want to always speak the common language and the same terminology, especially not so much in our basketball club as much, but making sure that from 8th and 9th grade on up, we're using common terminology. And then once we've established that foundation in our common terminology, then we can add layers to that when they hit the sophomore level and the varsity level. And then when it comes to especially like our man and our zone offenses, we think it's very important that we have a base in our system that way as well. The expectation is from 8th grade on up that they will attempt to run 2 of our base offenses at the 8th grade level, the freshman level, and then that just goes right into the sophomore and varsity level. And then for zone offense, the same thing, installing our base offenses and using that same terminology for those offenses. So when the kids get to the sophomore and varsity level, it's something that they've learned, they've experienced, and they know exactly what we're talking about. As far as our club goes, the big thing, we don't worry about what offenses they run. I really encourage those coaches, those young kids. I'm not interested in them running set plays, and I'm interested in them teaching concepts that are part of our offensive schemes, and just showing them simple 4-out or 5-out motion, and teaching the kids the different cuts, and waiting for screens, teaching them how to screen, and then also teaching them the importance of spacing, not only in the half court, but also in the full court. So those are some of the things that we tend to emphasize as part of our program. And as far as the club goes, we will do a coaches clinic for those coaches, usually in the fall, and that precedes the skill sessions that our sophomore and varsity coaches run. And at the current time, we've already had 5 of those skill sessions for our 3rd through 8th graders. We don't do them with the 2nd grade. And we've had 5 of those skill sessions, and we have 5 left. And those will end on October 14th. And we feel it's not only valuable in teaching the kids parts of the game and the fundamental areas that we want to emphasize, but also just to make the connections with the kids so they know who the sophomore and the varsity coaches are at Centennial High School. The first part of my presentation has been over the actual building blocks of our program, and once we established our program, what we wanted those building blocks to look like. The second part, or half of my presentation, I'd like to address is then how do we go about maintaining that culture that we've established. And one of the things that you'll see here on the PowerPoint is what we call 3-dimensional coaching. Our athletic director, Scott Jarvis, brought that to Centennial High School 3 years ago. And he's asked the contracted coaches in each sport to pick 2 areas they wanted to focus on. So on the PowerPoint, you can see I've shared with you, myself, and then 4 of our coaches in our program, and what areas that they have focused on. And my 2 areas that I focused on were team cohesion and legacy. I felt a couple seasons ago we didn't have great team chemistry or cohesion, so we wanted to make that a priority. And this past season, I couldn't ask for a better transformation from our guys. They really did a great job, and not because we won 24 games, just because the team chemistry and camaraderie is a lot better, both on the floor and off the floor. And they really, when we had our small group meetings, they did a great job of addressing certain situations and issues. And then the legacy, we just want, each year, each team creates its own legacy. And whether it's each team leaving their legacy and their mark on our program, or us coaches, being part of that legacy as well, and what we want future Centennial players and teams to look like. Some other areas that some of my assistants focused on were confidence, motivation, character, and emotions. And so all of these areas of focus within the 3-dimensional framework are very valuable to a program and to a team. And in our program, we have 3 teams, a freshman, sophomore, and varsity. Excuse me. So, but we really hit on it hard with the varsity, and we just introduce it basically to the sophomores. So, but I think it's a program that any sport and any school should take a good look at, because as I've told our AD, I wish this thing would have been around years ago when I first started coaching. And then when you have coaches that buy into the 3-dimensional framework, then I think that helps with you as a head coach. It helps you to know your assistants are instilling the expectations of the program to the young men in our program, and also communicating those expectations to the parents as well. As I had mentioned, that we expect our coaches to instill the expectations with the young men in our program. We also want our parents to know what the expectations are within our program and for our program. And so we have a required parent meeting. It's a week before our season starts, and we meet as an entire basketball family, and we cover some general areas, and then we break into specific teams, the varsity, the sophomore, and the freshman. And by doing so, we cover our expectations. We answer specific questions based on the level of the meeting that the parents are at. And then we give each parent what we call a player-parent handbook. And I'd like to share that player-parent handbook with you at this time. And I'm just going to share parts of it with you, but I started using one years ago at Cedar Rapids Kennedy, and I felt by having a player-parent handbook and also having that player-parent meeting week before the season starts, that usually does a lot of preventive maintenance and avoid some situations that you don't have to then deal with during the season. As you can see there on the PowerPoint, we have a picture of just the cover of our player-parent handbook from last season, and then it has a table of contents in it that I've designed, and within that handbook or guide, as you may want to call it, it spells out the policies, expectations. For example, I'll just hit on one right now. On game day, our young men, if it's a home game, we dress up. They're expected to wear a pair of nice slacks or khakis, dress shoes, sweater vest, and nice shirt and a tie. If it's an away game, we wear our travel warm-ups, and our policy is if you don't dress properly on game day, you don't dress for the game that day. And then also on game day, when the girls' game is going on, or if the sophomore game precedes ours, we sit together as a team, whether it's home or away, and we do not allow our players to have their cell phones with them. One of my assistants is in charge of collecting everybody's cell phones. He puts them in a bag and he locks them up in a locker, and we give them back to the players after the game. We don't want them sitting together and being on their phones. We want them to be either engaged by watching the game that's preceding us, whether it's the girls or our sophomore team, or we want them conversing with each other. We think that's very important to establishing team chemistry and camaraderie within our team. Also in our handbook, a couple of the things I just pulled out of there for you to view. I put a picture in there of me talking to our team at one of our home games, and came up with a saying: a coach can help you with your mistakes, but nobody can help you with your excuses. And we want our players to know, hey, you're going to make mistakes. You need to move on, have the next play mentality, but we don't want any excuses or having you trip over anything that's in your rearview mirror. Okay, so I always put that there in our handbook. And then the next slide that you're going to see is what we call our Centennial culture. All right. We want our kids to strive to succeed. We want them to achieve to the best of their ability for their team, their school, their community. And we want them to, obviously play hard and have a great work ethic and, play with a lot of heart and a lot of passion. Okay. And that's how I want our kids to be remembered, win or lose, is that we left it all out on the floor. We want our players to be tough and disciplined, not only physically tough, but also mentally tough. And I think when you get a team that buys in together and they know that there's going to be adversity, as I said before in my presentation, adversity brings advance a lot of times. And it's how you meet adversity and how you handle it, which can be a big part of your mental toughness. And then I always say to our kids, who are the warriors on our team, and who's going to hold our kids accountable? Is it going to be a coach-led team, or is it going to be a player-led team? When you have a coach-led team, I think you could have a good team, but I don't know if you could have a great team. Last year, I thought we had the perfect mix. To do what we did last year. We were picked to get fourth in our conference. We won our conference. We had the best record in the CIML since 2010. And, our state tournament run didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, but as a whole, I couldn't ask for a better group of kids that live the Jaguar creed and the Jaguar way, how they went about their business last year. So, and then the next slide I would like to address is last spring we had our seniors to be, they met once a week. They had 10 meetings, called it small group talks, and they came up with what they thought they had to be mentally good at this past season, and you can see that there in the slide. They wanted to, be fearless. They wanted to make sure everybody understood their roles. Physically, they wanted to make sure we were taking care of the ball and sharing it. They knew that we had to buy in on defense if we're going to win championships. And they had to get better at special teams, which is the start of the quarters, the end of the quarters, and out of bounds plays, both offensively and defensively. And then also, knocking down free throws. We ended up being the third best free throw shooting team in the state in Class 4A last year. And then they came up with 4 tenets that they wanted to focus on, and they thought that was crucial to our success, and that was trust, accountability, playing with a confident mindset, and continuously improving. And I thought they did a great job of buying in and living by those 4 tenets in practice and in games on a daily basis. And as I told them, when I saw that they chose these things, I said accountability is a glue that ties the commitment to our results. And again, we did a great job of that last year. And then also, there's a page that I put up there on the slide. And basically, I'm getting into how do you market your program? And the picture that you see of our team poster, that was on the back page of our handbook as well. And our kids came up with the theme of our poster, Passion Unites, Rise Together. Again, letting them have a little bit of ownership in the program. And how do we go about that ownership, and what do we expect of them, and what do they expect of each other? We have a slide there that you're going to see called the Pillars of the Program. That is posted in our basketball office. It's in their handbook. The kids know what the 4 pillars are. Also, the kids do a great job of understanding our scouting report and the importance of knowing that. And then you have a PowerPoint slide that you're going to see. It's our Super 7 board, and we think those are 7 things that we want to try to achieve every game. Now, you're not going to probably, have perfection, but you want to have goals to try to achieve those. And you can see on that board how many of those Super 7 we achieved for each opponent that we played last year. And continuing on about marketing our program, there's different things that we do, and I'm going to talk about those here in a minute. I think it's really important that you market your program, and some ways that we market our program is we have what we call Players of the Week. We have a Defensive Player of the Week, a Rebounder of the Week, Free Thrower of the Week, and a Great Teammate of the Week. And the first three categories, or I should say recognitions, are based by statistics and our defensive chart we keep. The Great Teammate of the Week, the coaching staff votes on that, and sometimes we will even ask our players who they think the Great Teammate of the Week is. And what we do is at a local restaurant, we have a display case, and then those players' pictures go up in that display case. And then also in our locker room, we have a bulletin board, and they're recognized there as well. And I think it's really important to recognize those achievements and successes weekly. And as I said, I think that's part of championship culture and celebrating the successes along with all the wins and every other type of successes you have in your program. And then some other ways that we market our program, we have a poster every year. Last year's theme was Passion Unites, Rise Together. You would have seen that previously in one of the slides. We have a Jaguar basketball committee, and that committee, I started that the first year I was here. I also had one at Cedar Rapids Kennedy. And what we ask those people to do is, help organize the banquet, help organize the shoe and the gear fitting, also come up with a fan apparel website. And then we have a person on that committee that helps coordinate the concessions along with the Booster Club, and having parents take their turn, working the concession stand. And it's just something that I think, any of us coaches greatly appreciate people that volunteer their time and take care of those things so we can focus on the actual coaching of the game, coaching of our players and our team within our program. And then they will go out and solicit sponsors for us, and what we do is we sell two types of ads on our poster, and whether it's a small ad or a big ad. And sometimes some of the restaurants that put their ad on our poster, what they provide instead of actually giving us money is they provide a team meal for us, which is greatly appreciated. And we have a team meal with the varsity. We have a team meal once a week on Thursday evenings, and we will either go to the restaurant here in town, or we will have, they will bring the food to us, and then we'll have the team meal at our school cafeteria. And then there will always be a couple parents off the committee that are here to help out with the meal if it's a school. If we do go to a local restaurant, usually our committee will, let the parents know where we're going and say, hey, help support that business, whether you join the team meal the night before the game, or maybe before or after the game. If it's a home game, they could stop and have dinner there. So, and then, as I said before, we also have our Ankeny Centennial Basketball Club, and we market that big. They have their own website. That website address will be on a slide, so you can go peruse that website at your own availability and liking. And then our Centennial Basketball website, which is through our school website and our school district. That's where we have, a letter from me to everybody, our coaches' pictures. It has our school records, has other, achievements on there, has statistics, things of that nature, and any pictures that we add throughout the year. And then in ending, what I'd like to say is, regardless of what size school you're at, or whether you're a head sophomore coach, a varsity coach, whatever it may be, I think it's important to market your program and sell your product. I've been a head coach at a 1A school right out of college for a couple years. Then I was the head sophomore coach at West Des Moines Valley for a handful of years. Then became the head coach at Carlisle for 5 years. And then went to Cedar Rapids Kennedy for 16 years, and now back here in my hometown of Ankeny at Centennial High School. So next year will be my 30th year as a head varsity coach. And I just think it's very important that you stay and become, first of all, a student of the game, whether it's through clinics, whether it's through going to college practices. I've always said good basketball knows no class, and what I mean by that, it doesn't matter what size of school you're at. Be the best version of yourself. Give your kids the best of you and the best of the opportunities you can provide them. I greatly appreciate the Iowa Basketball Coaches Association and Don Logan asking me to do this presentation, and I hope that you can take something from this and you can find some value in it. And I guess in ending here, I would just say this, just emphasize your kids are going to be a man a lot longer. They're going to be a basketball player, and to be good citizens, because as you all know, we need good citizens in our society, and there's nothing that's more enjoyable when you have your former players come back and they tell you what they're doing, where they've been, and the successes they've had outside of this great game of basketball. So again, thank you. I appreciate your time. If you ever need to get in touch with me, my email is there on the slide. You can follow us on our Twitter and our Instagram accounts. Those are on there as well. And if you're interested in any of our, our fundamental core area drill booklets, let me know. All 5 of them would cost you $30, and I could get those packaged and sent to you. So thank you, and have a great season.